Father. He's also your King. Marinella, you want to say something?
Yes, I just want to add something about talking about our King, right? How he chooses Israel as a nation. Because I was reading Torah, and one of the verses I read about he wanted to dwell, here on earth, and he wanted to have a nation to be able to communicate. In this case, it's Israel. And what really amazes me, why he chose such a small little piece of land, that is a lot of desert. That's something that really, brought my attention. And I said, Lord, you have so much, beauty all over the world. You choose this little piece of land, and it's like, why, you just wanted just a little piece of land. And that was something, that I was in my mind, how God, even he's the King, he chose, just a little piece of land. And that's, for me, so beautiful.
Yes, it is.
Because he could choose, other lands, where they have a lot of forest, mountains, whatever you want to call it. There's so much beauty all over the world. But he chose just this little piece of land. And still, people don't understand. It's for me, that's how God wants to manifest. I'm the King. I could have anything, but I just choose to have this piece of land, this little piece of land.
Right.
Yeah.
When he talks about the sacrifices, I'm sure you've all read this. I don't need your sacrifices. If I'm hungry, I don't need you to bring me food. Everything is mine. If I'm thirsty, I don't need you to bring me drink. Everything belongs to me, he said. So the important thing here is recognizing that's who he is. It's that simple. Look, little known fact, from the time the Romans threw us out of Israel and threw us out to the rest of the world, until we came back, what was the land of Israel? Physically, it was a desert, desolate. Nobody could grow anything on it. Nothing would live on it. It was a total desolation. The minute we started coming back in the late 1800s, the land started flourishing again wherever we touched it. It wasn't because the other people couldn't do it. It's because it wouldn't work for them, because God said it's not going to work for anybody but the people I appointed as my nation.
I've always considered the Jewish people as the soul of the land. When the soul departs from the body dies. When the soul returns back to the body lives. And so the Jews themselves are the soul of the land. They are what gives it life.
Well, that's a nice way of putting it. I never thought about it that way. I just figured that's a good way of putting it, I guess. So
that's just how I've seen it for years.
Yeah.
And actually getting to see the land, when I was there in 2003, we went to the Shah in Jerusalem on our last day before we left, and I tried to take pictures to capture the environment, and you can't capture the environment unless you do it in person. It's just, you know how it is, Pesach. The environment is just amazing. I was going through, and there was this one guy had a stand in there, and he had these huge, like, red things this big, and I stopped and I asked him, I said, what are those? He said, they're radishes. I said, no, they're not. Radishes are this big. That's what we put on our salads. He goes, no, radishes this big. He goes, how do you get them that big? He goes, radishes are that big. And I said, I got you.
It's when you go through Machane Yehuda, it's called, in Jerusalem, the shuk there, it just assaults your senses. It's so, every spice in the world is there, every piece of produce.
And people in America, think of Walmart on steroids, open air.
It's an amazing experience when you come. But look, when I first got here, there was in Beersheba, the camel market was still there. And I used to go down to Beersheba on Thursdays, and the Bedouin would come in from the desert, like you see in the old movies and stuff. They'd bring in stuff to trade and swap, and they'd bring their camels in. And I mean, it was really cool. And I wish they still did that thing. It was pretty cool. But all I'm saying is, we're all hooked together. The only thing that separates us actually is religion. And religion is man-made. There is not one single Hebrew word that means religion. The word that people have translated into religion is knowledge. That. And one of the biggest things that stops people from coming together now, tomorrow morning when we wake up, is our own egos, our own animal side of us that says, well, I think this, I'm right. The other one says, no, I think this, I'm right. And then people get in all kinds of debates. They want to debate it. How can somebody debate something they have no knowledge of? I mean, they have feelings of, and they think they're right. But how can they debate something? It just doesn't work. To debate something, you have to be able to research something and bring facts together to prove a point. And you can't bring mistranslations. You can't bring your opinions to a debate. So I stopped debating years ago with people. Here's some information. Taste it, smell it. The beautiful scent of truth from God. Now, in every religion, there is a scent of truth from God because they've all borrowed it from our teachings. It all comes from the 5 books of Moses. Every religion on earth, except the ones in India, I think, are based on some way, shape, or form on the 5 books of Moses, which gives them a scent of truth. You know, there are recipes that call for sugar, it's called for rose water, it's called for this, calls for that, and all these other things, right? But if you mix it in with something else, it doesn't change what it was mixed into to something more beautiful. I don't even want to use a gross analogy, but if you dump rose water on a pile of something else, it doesn't turn it into anything other than what it was in the first place. So it's something that people just don't accept. Oh, it smells so good, it must be rose water. And they close their eyes to where it actually came from. You know, there was years ago, when somebody just recirculated on the internet, there's a statue somewhere in the world of this guy on a cross, and there's water dripping from his toes. People would come and collect it in bottles and drink it because it was healing water. But when they really found out where the water was coming from, it was coming from a clogged toilet 2 stories up. But people believed it was rose water. Belief without intelligence isn't worth anything. You have to know where you're going. Yeah, it is kind of gross, isn't it? Marinella, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to write it, but okay, thank you for giving me the microphone. This happened to me this past week. Amazing thing happened from, this past week has been a beautiful week. I was driving to work, and suddenly, God just brought into my thoughts religion. And it was an intense moment because it was like God revealing to me what religion does to man. Okay, when people come to religion or to any church or to any pastor or any institution, they come with a problem. There's a big situation, they don't know what to do. So they're very sensitive, in that moment of their life. And what happened is that when they're introduced, the gospel or the truth about God, these people are in such a low level of their life that they receive whatever they said. But then what God told me, the problem with religion and the people, man-made religion takes over that soul and controls them by using my name, using my word. And I thought, that was horrible, because it is true. When we need spiritual help, we look at the churches, because those are that's the connection we have with God, and that's kind of the open doors for people to end up, learning, false doctrines or whatever, that we sadly, have experienced, in the past. But, I was just saying, oh, Lord, this is horrible, because now I understand why religion has so much control over people's, lives. But, that was something so beautiful to me, that God finally revealed to me why religion is very, very effective, if you want to say, in people's life, because it's like a bridge to be able to connect with people, with God, but in the wrong, way. I don't know how to even put it.
No, you said it very well. It's true. It's very good.
It's kind of like what a virus does to a computer.
Yeah. Or to a body, if you get
a body.
Mm-hmm.
Takes it over. Okay. Troy, you got anything you want to ask or put in or talk about?
Very quick. I guess I was learning this past yesterday a little bit, going through Musar teaching about Torah study is theoretical, while like practicing your ethics, our ethics, practicing it's practical. It's practical, and I was just wondering if there was any, if you had any more opinion on anything like that.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Very good question. We have discussions about this all the time amongst our fellow Jews here. Some of them say studying is everything. Learning every little nook and cranny of the Torah is everything. They spend their whole days from morning till night doing nothing but study. And you have people that go the other way around and study 5 minutes a day and go out about their lives. Torah is theoretical for us, for what we do. We make it practical by doing it. God wants 3 things from us: thought, speech, and action. If it's just thought and we're just learning and we're not putting it in action, it's wasted. But we do have people at a certain level of society, of our society and the Jews, that we need them to do that studying so they can hand down understandings to us further down the chain. So we don't have to study all day long. But most individuals, when they study it, they're only going to understand it to the best of their capability, whether they're Jew or Gentile. It doesn't make any difference who you are. It's like anything that you study. You can only study it to your level of understanding. But once you know something, you have to put it into practice or it stays theoretical. Be kind to animals. Quick story, I'm sure everybody's heard it before. Old man's walking down the street, and there's a little boy in front of him about 8 or 9 or 10 years old, and the boy's just hopping and skipping along in front of him. And a dog comes up to the boy, and the boy kicks it aside and keeps going down the street. He stops at the corner at the red light. The old man comes up behind him and says, "Young man, you kicked that dog. Haven't your parents ever taught you to be kind to animals?" "Yes, my mother tells me to be kind to animals all the time." "Why'd you kick the dog?" "Because that's what my mommy does when the dog comes too close." So things are theoretical until you actually put them into practice. Now, this little boy learned from his mom to be kind to animals, but it's okay to kick one away from you. See, and now when he gets time to think about it, be kind to animals, he knows then he'll know he shouldn't kick unless he doesn't think about it at all. But you're absolutely right. You can study, know everything, but if you don't use it, it's worth nothing.
Right. It's like my books on my shelf, my books of Torah right here. They're totally useless until I pull them off the shelf, but they still remain useless even when they're on my desk, opened up in front of me. But they become useful when I take what I've learned from them and applied it in my life.
Exactly. No,
But
that
it-
most
but it-
teaching 100%.
But until I do that, as long as they sit there, they're a theory and have no power in their own. They only have power when I act on what I read, what's inside of it.
Exactly. The whole point of everything we do and everything we learn is to bring it from our head into make it real in our thoughts, and to speak it or do it out. Thought, speech, and action. These are the things we're supposed to do with what we learn. If we don't do all three things, now, speech and action are interchangeable, by the way. You don't have to sit and preach to somebody how to be good to animals, kind to animals. If they see you being kind to animals, that's enough. It's just like speaking to them. So it's really important that we put in practice what we learn. Everything's a theory until you use it. Everything in life is a theory.
Now,
And-
just like our 7 laws: theft, prohibition of theft. We go to the store and we pick up the wrong magazine. We think it's free. We get outside. We see it has a price tag. It's when we return it back in, knowing it wasn't ours to begin with, and we picked it up by mistake, and return it back to its owner. We took that prohibition and we made it real.
Exactly. Or you get outside the store, you look at your change, you find out you got too much money in your hand.
Right.
Now, you can go through a thought process. Well, I give it to charity. Or they're not going to miss it. They're a big company. I'll just put it in my pocket. Until you make it practical by going back in there and handing them the money back and saying, here, there's too much money, you're stealing. It wasn't, if you put it in, take it home, you're stealing. You know, it's an amazing thing here in Sfat, and I know it happens in other places around Israel, I'm sure in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Let's say I'm walking down the street and I have a scarf around my neck, it falls off, I don't notice it. The next day, if I'm walking the same path, if somebody noticed it, they're going to hang it up so whoever lost it can see it, and I'll come by and I'll see my scarf there. They just don't take it. The same thing goes for money. It goes for anything that you find. It's not finders keepers.
I seen this situation, not exactly in that form of someone losing something, but when I was in Brooklyn back in 2010, and I had never been to New York, in Brooklyn. I was a Tennessee boy, so it was pretty cool. But I was in Borough Park, and everybody's familiar with Borough Park. It's the Jewish section of Brooklyn. And I was walking, and I come to this used bookstore called Pinter's Used Bookstore. And the guy had gone for lunch. But on the outside, I'm talking about on a New York sidewalk, there is a table covered with books and no attendee. There was a hole in the door, says, please pay for what you take. And I stood back and I would watch Jews walk up, go through the book, say, oh man, this is what I want. Reach in their pocket and put the money in the door and go on. And I said, freak, only in Borough Park, you'll see that. Anywhere else, they'd just take the book and run. But they literally, there was no attendee. The doors were locked. They would pay for their books and go. And I found that just an astonishing, when I witnessed it with my eyes. It was amazing. It was an amazing lesson that I saw the Jewish people teaching me what to do right.
Yeah, but where I am in Kikar McGinney, in this circle there, a lot of tourists come through there every day, and every once in a while somebody drops a wallet or leaves a purse somewhere, and we just put it on a table out in front of the stores, and the people come back and say, ah, there's my wallet, there's my purse. I never expected it, you know, and it's just sitting there waiting for them to come pick it back up. It's just, it's a
What's it say? Was it Deuteronomy chapter 4 when the nations see the laws, the Jews, that they would marvel at that the nation of Israel had a great God, something like that?
Yeah.
It's things like this that tells us, it shows us what Troy was saying. It shows us the practicality of that verse. It's no longer a theory. When we see these actions, we thank God for the laws he's given Israel. And we marvel at the law. We marvel at the Jews. We marvel at God, at the keeping and the king that gave us.
Everybody.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is this is taking a theory out of Deuteronomy and putting it into practical, like what Troy was talking about.
Yeah.
And it'll establish with me and with when I come into old age, you know, those things I've seen, the things I put into practice, it'll establish me in my old age. You know, these things I learned in Torah, don't do this, don't do that, or, you know, in the Shabbat Mitzvot, I mean.
Amen. Yes, it's true. Leonora, you have something you want to bring up or anything before we go? Veronica or Fran, if you have any questions, if you don't want to say them out loud, type them in. And go ahead, Fran. Fran's typing in. Or you can do it vocal. All right, we'll just wait a second for her to type in, I guess. Veronica, yes. Yes, we're going to do this every single Sunday at this time for about an hour. And we would ask you to please get the word out to everybody. Tell people. We can have up to 100 guests in this room. Is that right?
Yeah, we have up to 100 on our contract.
Okay. Yes, please do. And they can come with questions if they wish. We always try to touch on a subject, but then we kind of open up and let it flow because some people want to know some certain things. And so there's always time for questions for everybody. Veronica, you have anything you want to? That's great. Please do that, Fran. Please do that. We appreciate that. Yeah, go ahead, Marinelle.
I just want to also bless our precious king, you know, about the opportunity last night to actually see the man who blew the shofar and when they conquered, you know, the holy city, Jerusalem. I don't know if you know him, but he was visiting here in LA, and I watched it through this other group, Accidental Talmudist. He brought this man, you know, into the show, and he blew the shofar, the same shofar he blew when he conquered Jerusalem. Oh, I was blown away because I was not expecting, you know, to witness that. And he kind of shared his story, and it was such a blessing for me. So I just want to extend the blessing to you too.
Thank you.
That was very beautiful.
Very good, very good. I was there during the 6-Day War. Yeah, same time next Sunday. Same time. We'll be here. Same link. So I was there and I heard it on. We didn't have television back in 1967 like you do today, where you catch everything live. But we heard it over the radio, and we were all. Everybody in the neighborhood was listening to radios and crying. It was pretty. We didn't live in Jerusalem then. We lived up near the Lebanese border.
Wow.
Very touching experience.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
So, anybody else have anything? Terry, you got anything you want to sum up with?
Yeah, in my last, not this last post the one before where I talked about the acknowledgement and observance, and in my blog I brought out Psalms 90, a part of Psalms 92 that it is good for us to recommended for us to recite on the seventh day if we choose to. I was going over this again last night, these passages, and in my 7 years or so that I studied for conversion, learning the Shemona Esrei, the 18 prayers written by the men of the Great Assembly, my favorite prayer was Gibor Hashem, the might of God, mainly because I was very close to my mom, and it deals with the resurrection. And one of my favorite parts of learning that, where it talks about how God maintains his faith with those who lay in the dust. It's always, it's in the forefront of my mind. I've even tried to, in the past, write on it. But when I studied this passage in 92, I found that word again that really moved me in that particular prayer. And now I see how I can bring it to the Noahides, since we don't pray those prayers. And the word is ve'emunatecha. And it talks about in verse chapter 3 of Psalms 92, to proclaim your kindness in the dawn and your faith in the nights. Now that's a whole teaching alone. That's really good.
Right.
But I want to hone in on this point as we close. I'm going to use the first part of the verse, to proclaim your faith in the nights. We proclaim your faith. We're talking about God's faith, right, the Creator's faith. Think of this. We've studied what Emunah is, that it's not faith. Faith, because Emunah is based on knowledge. Faith is based on belief, which can be doubt, and that's a whole teaching. But when have we stopped to meditate on the Hebrew word emunatecha, the very faith of God himself? What is his faith? And when we get to pondering on not my faith, which can have a shortcoming, but his faith is eternal and without doubt, without any failure. How much that, his faith in our lives, and which means right here in the nights, which means during our sufferings, during our hard times, is what that means. But just meditating on the faith, God's faith, not our faith, but his. It's one of those things that blows my mind.
I'm gonna blow your mind a little bit more. At night, it means, yes, during hard times and sufferings, but also means literally at night. When we go to sleep at night, what happens to our soul? See, we believe that it's under God's care during the night. He's watching over us, and he returns us and wakes us up in the morning because of his faith in us. It's 1/60th of death, actually, Fran, which is a very small part. But the point is, the soul wants to be back with him. It goes with him, comes back down in the morning, so to speak, and he wakes us up every morning because of his faith in us.
Yeah. But then when we ponder what his faith is, then we can move into what Marinella was talking about, the trust part.
Right.
I don't know, it's just that word, once I seen it in that prayer, and then the other night I was looking at the Hebrew of this verse, I said, there's that word again that rocked my world so many years ago.
It's, if I'm not mistaken, if you read the Shemona Esrei, it's like the second or third prayer we pray.
Right.
Yeah, that we pray that he's our shield, and the next one down, we have faith in him because of his resurrection of the dead and how he takes care of us and he brings us back to life.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it's a very powerful thing you just brought up. Yes, it is. We should go into that maybe a little deeper next week.
I could sit and think about this for hours at a time sometimes. But I just wanted to kind of close on that as we go into the week. Let's ponder what the Creator's faith is, His faith.
In us, yes.
Yeah, in us, in His creation. You know, it just opens up so much as we're coming as Noahides to the Torah, our part of the Torah, and finding out that God actually has faith in us as well as we have faith in Him. That He maintains His faith, like the prayer says, He maintains His faith with those who lie in the dust. So imagine about what His faith is for those of us who walk on the dust, that are obeying His commandments.
So true. So good. That's a good point to leave. I see Franz asked for anyone, if anyone needs prayer, maybe you can just type it into her. She'll take care of it. Look, you guys, we thank you for coming by. The regulars that are here, anybody came new, we hope you keep coming by. If you have questions for me or Terry, you can always get a hold of us through our Facebook pages during the week. And if you need a private discussion about something, we can do that too. Both of us will do it. Terry's Eastern Standard Time, and I'm Jerusalem time. So it's a little bit 7 hours difference between us.
So we're live from the world.
Yes. And we thank you for being with us. And we'll see you next Sunday.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Terry.
All right.